And we are back. Welcome to my preview and predictions for Premier League Game Week 33. Apologies for this video being up a little bit later than usual, but hopefully you'll forgive me for yesterday being firstly my first day back from holiday, but also just the best night in the Europa League last night for my club, Manchester United. Make sure to check out my post-match reaction to see what sort of a mess I was in at the end of that game last night. So that's why we're a little bit later today. Before we get into it, I want to say again a massive thank you to the new members that we've had this week. Just the one new member this week. Remember, if you hit that join button, you could gain access to my La Liga preview and predictions. That video went out just a little while ago. As for today, though, we once again have 10 Premier League matches to talk about. We do have, of course, more Premier League fixtures for Game Week 33 in midweek. I'll do a separate video for them on Monday morning. And it was a pretty decent week all round. Premier League, we got 6 out of 11. Europe wasn't as good, but it still wasn't too bad because we've got 2 correct scores from Europe this week. So don't forget to drop a like on this video if you haven't done so already. And subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so don't miss out on any of the other prediction videos we've got coming up for you over the next few weeks. But without any further ado, let's get into it. Premier League Game Week 33 begins at 3 o'clock on Saturday. There is no early kickoff tomorrow, so we go straight in to Brentford versus Brighton, 11th versus 10th. And for Brentford, although they are winless in their last 3, it should be noted that their last 2 draws have been against Arsenal and Chelsea. So pretty good results, I think, for Brentford over the last couple of weeks. For Brighton, they are winless in their last 5. So really not looking good for them at the moment, especially when you consider they drew at home to Leicester last week, who obviously we'll get to them later, but were on an absolutely torrid run before that game against Brighton. So not looking good for them, especially when you consider the likes of Veltman, Mitoma and Lamptey are still listed as doubtful. Meanwhile, the likes of Ruter, Kadioglu and a few others could still miss the remainder of the season. For Brentford, no such fresh injury concerns for them. They're rebuilding their squad. They're almost back to full fitness. They're playing some decent football at the moment, although it should also be noted that the last 2 fixtures between these 2 sides have both ended in 0-0 draws. So I'm not convinced this one's going to go the same way here, but when you see a fixture that historically has 0-0 draws, you certainly cannot rule it out. I expect Brentford to get the result here, though, and I actually do expect both teams to score in this one. I'm going for a 2-1 victory to Brentford. Whilst that game is going on, Crystal Palace will be taking on Bournemouth, and what had been a very good run for Crystal Palace has come crashing down in the last few days. Firstly, conceding 5 at Manchester City after being 2-0 ahead, and then playing in the midweek game against Newcastle, conceding 5 yet again, which means they've actually conceded 10 goals in their last 2 games without reply, which is not a good look for them. As for Bournemouth, they finally ended their winless run with a good win at home to Fulham after Semenyo scored after just 53 seconds, holding on for the remainder of the match. To be fair, with the week that Crystal Palace have had and the news that Justin Kluivert should finally be able to make his return for Bournemouth this weekend, I do think this is a really good opportunity to Bournemouth to get themselves back in that European hunt. They're back up to 8th. Palace are down to 12th. However, again, bizarrely, just like the first game we talked about today, the game earlier on this season ended in a 0-0 draw. And what's absolutely unbelievable about this fixture is that only one side has scored in every single fixture stretching back to 2019. So there's either been a 0-0 draw or one team has won to 0 in every single match for the past 6 years. I'm backing that trend to end here as well because I'm going for a 1-1 draw. But watch this space. It would not surprise me to see Bournemouth edge it 1-0 once again after what we saw from them last week and what we saw from Palace during midweek as well. Next up, it is Everton taking on Manchester City, and Everton are another side who saw their winless run come to an end last week with a really impressive 1-0 away win to Nottingham Forest. Defensively resilient throughout the entirety of the match, and then they let Forest onto them, counter-attack in the last minute of the game, Doucouré with the very, very good finish, and it means that Everton go up to 13th in the Premier League table. As for Manchester City, as we just talked about, they smashed Crystal Palace 5-2, although they did go 2-0 behind in that game, And the game did come at the cost of Ederson, the goalkeeper, who picked up yet another injury, which could potentially see him miss the remainder of the season, with talks that he could be leaving in the summer. Could we have seen Ederson play for Manchester City for the last time? In terms of the head-to-head record when it comes to this fixture, it is very strong in Manchester City's favour. No defeats to Everton in their last 16 matches, winning 13 of said 16. However, it was a 1-1 draw at the Etihad on Boxing Day. I think with the way the two sides have played over the last few weeks, though, I think there is a good chance that Everton could produce something here. But I just think City just starting to peak at the right moment here. I think they're going to get into the top four. I also think they have a very good chance of winning the FA Cup. So with that said, I'm going for a 2-1 victory to Manchester City. But, like I say, Everton, very strong side at the moment. Ones to watch, could produce another result here. Next up, West Ham take on Southampton. And if you look at those league positions, West Ham are now down to 17th in the Premier League table after losing at Anfield last week. To be fair, they played pretty well against Liverpool. It took a Virgil van Dijk last-minute header to see them go down, but it does mean they've not won any of their last 5. For Southampton, yet another defeat, 3-0 home defeat to Aston Villa. And Aaron Ramsdale even saved 2 penalties in that match. It just shows you how far off it Southampton are. Realistically, neither side are necessarily playing for much here. Southampton are just playing to avoid the lowest point tally ever. West Ham will be looking to make their way back up the table after slipping down to 17th with defeat last week. No fresh injury concerns for either side. To be fair, both sides are near enough back to full strength. West Ham are only missing the likes of Antonio and Somerville. Southampton now have their full backline fit and available to them. So we'll see. Ultimately, though, I don't think it's going to be enough to stop West Ham getting the victory here. I just don't think Southampton are good enough to do anything for the remainder of this season. I'm going for a 2-0 win to West Ham. And then the final game on Saturday is, in my opinion, the most interesting game of the week. It is Aston Villa taking on Newcastle United. And also, in my opinion, the two best performing teams in the Premier League at the moment in terms of actual performance on the pitch, if not on the actual stats in terms of points gained over the last few weeks as well. Aston Villa, as we know, beat Southampton 3-0 last week with Asensio missing those 2 penalties. And then they beat Paris Saint-Germain. And what a game that was, by the way. And if it wasn't for a Pacho clearance off the line from an incredible Maatsen volley, Villa could have got that game to extra time. Let's not forget, of course, Donnarumma's incredible saves from Asensio and from Tielemans as well to stop Villa getting the actual tie to extra time. Obviously, they did win that leg. For Newcastle, they are just absolutely flying at the moment. In my opinion, Newcastle right now are the best team in the Premier League in terms of performance. They're smashing teams left, right and centre. They blew Man United away last week. Then they blew Crystal Palace away in midweek 5-0 to boot. They're playing some absolutely incredible stuff. And no side knows how tough it is to play against Newcastle more than Aston Villa in recent times. In the last 3 meetings, the aggregate scoreline is 11-2 in Newcastle's favour, with Newcastle also winning 3-0 on Boxing Day. For me, the biggest thing to expect from this game is goals. I'd be shocked if both teams didn't score in this match. They're both playing such good attacking football at the moment. But as we saw, Villa do leave themselves a little bit vulnerable like they did against PSG. Newcastle seem to be a little bit more defensively secure. No fresh injury or suspension concerns for either side. Obviously, best wishes to Eddie Howe, who still remains in hospital as things stand. Jason Tindall will once again be in charge of Newcastle. But the 2 games he's overseen so far, you'd back that run to continue here. I expect this to be a really entertaining game, but I'm going for a 3-2 win to Newcastle. On to Sunday, and we have a few early kickoffs on Sunday. The first is a big West London derby between Fulham and Chelsea. And arguably, this is one of the biggest West London derbies ever. Fulham, as things stand, despite losing to Bournemouth last week, are still just 7 points off the Champions League places, 6 points off Chelsea, who are in 6th as things stand. So still a lot to play for Fulham in terms of trying to get into Europe for next season. For Chelsea, their wobble is starting to become a big one, because not only did they fail to win at home to Ipswich last week, they played a fairly strong side last night, and again in front of their home fans, and they lost at home to Legia Warsaw To be fair, they obviously still progressed to the second round, to the semi-final of the Conference League, but it ended their run of winning every game in that competition. And after drawing at home to Ipswich as well, again, it's just not a good look for them. Furthermore, Fulham also won the reverse fixture on Boxing Day 2-1 at Stamford Bridge. So with the form that Chelsea are in, I really struggle to see where they're going to get the result here. I am potentially rather stupidly going to go for a 1-1 draw, because I still think with everything to play for, Chelsea will naturally just step it up. But I don't know. Fulham could definitely get the win here. I just think if they hadn't have lost at Bournemouth last week, I'd be much more confident to go for a Fulham win. It's just that's gnawing at me, and that is why I'm going for the 1-1 draw. While that game's going on, Ipswich will be taking on Arsenal. Obviously, as we know, Ipswich drew with Chelsea last week to try and keep their faint survival chances alive. But unfortunately, that result was not enough to see them go even further behind Wolves in the Premier League table. More on that shortly. For Arsenal, obviously, they are going to be celebrating yet another win over Real Madrid. That incredible counter-attack Martinelli goal in the final minute, securing the 2-1 victory away in Spain. 5-1 the victory on aggregate. However, it has to be noted that in Arsenal's last 2 Premier League games, they've been pretty bang average and could only manage draws against Everton and Brentford. So there's definitely a chance here for Ipswich to produce something. However, I think it's going to be a little bit of a surprise if they do. In terms of injuries and suspensions for Ipswich, it looks like they are going to be missing Jaden Philogene. He picked up an injury against Chelsea last week and looks set to miss this one. No fresh concerns for Arsenal coming out of the Champions League game. But we could still see Mikel Arteta rotate players ahead of a semi-final in a couple of weeks' time. For me, though, this is Arsenal's game to lose. For them, it's more about making sure they stay in the top 5 rather than hunting down Liverpool at this point. But I expect them to get a result against a side struggling to survive. I'm going for a 3-1 victory to Arsenal. But, like I say, with everything on the line for Ipswich, there is always a chance they can produce something. The final early kickoff on Sunday is Manchester United taking on Wolves. And if you think I'm not going to be biased around this prediction after last night, you are sorely mistaken. Manchester United did the seemingly impossible to come from a position where they were 4-2 down with 5 minutes left to win 5-4 in extra time against Lyon. Okay, we were 2-0 up, then 4-2 down. Okay, Tolisso did get sent off and Lyon were down to 10 men. Okay, maybe the winner from Harry Maguire was also a foul. But I don't care. We produced a performance I didn't think was capable from the mentality of these football players. And I'm so pleased with that. But now let's get the serious hat on. Because let's not forget, Manchester United were easily beaten by Newcastle in the Premier League last week. They're on a really poor run in the Premier League as things stand. They're down to 14th in the table now. And Wolves, let's not forget, have won their last 4 games in the Premier League in a row. Also meaning that they've now gone above West Ham. And if Wolves win this match, they actually go level on points with Manchester United. That's how good of a run Wolves are on and how bad of a run Manchester United are on in the Premier League. And also, Wolves did win 2-0 at Molineux in the reverse fixture on Boxing Day. So with all of that said, 2-1 Manchester United. Because there's no way I'm not going for a Manchester United win after what I saw last night. That is pure bias. I will say this right now. Ruben Amorim said after the game that the kids are going to have to step up in the Premier League because our priority is purely going to be on the Europa League. So if we see the likes of Amas, Obi, Kakonki, Collier and a few others in the starting lineup, I would definitely expect Wolves to get a result here. So this is probably one where you do wait for the starting lineups until you actually make your outright prediction yourselves. But I have to go for Manchester United here. I do think Wolves, with the form they're in, have got a very good chance of getting a result at Old Trafford. But I have to go for that from what I saw last night. Finally then, on Sunday, the main event sees Leicester taking on Liverpool. And obviously we will start with Leicester because the one thing I haven't mentioned so far in this video is that if West Ham beat Southampton and Wolves beat Manchester United, before a ball is even kicked at the King Power, Leicester will be relegated from the Premier League. Ultimately, even if that doesn't happen, this is a must-win game for Leicester. Otherwise, they're down anyway. And they're coming up against the Liverpool side who, again, let's be honest, weren't great last week against West Ham, but as they've managed to do on multiple occasions this season, ground out the result that they needed to take them one step closer to that Premier League title. And of course, Virgil van Dijk has signed his new deal this week after Salah signed his new deal last week. So there's a lot of positivity around Liverpool right now. Obviously, Leicester are going to be feeling a little bit better for themselves after getting the draw at Brighton last week, but I'd be really shocked if this is any other result than a Liverpool win. They have won their last 2 fixtures against Leicester 3-1. So for me, stands to reason that 3-1 is a pretty good scoreline to go for once again. Liverpool have also won all of the last 6 meetings between these 2 sides. And then finally, the Monday Night Football is Tottenham Hotspur taking on Nottingham Forest. And we spoke about what would happen for Leicester if Wolves and West Ham both won. Well, if Wolves and West Ham both win, Tottenham will be in 17th in the Premier League table, 1 position above the relegation zone with just 6 games to play, which is absolutely unbelievable for a side of the stature and the expectation on Tottenham this season. They did, however, produce an incredible win last night to go to Eintracht Frankfurt, one of the top sides in Germany right now, and get the 1-0 win is an incredible, incredible result for Ange Postecoglou and his players. And obviously, as with Manchester United, keeps their chances of Champions League football alive if they can deliver the Europa League. That said, though, they were absolutely outclassed by Wolves last week and lost 4-2 to Wolves in the Premier League. For Nottingham Forest, as we've already mentioned, they lost 1-0 at home to Everton, which puts major doubt over their Champions League status as well, because if Manchester City and Chelsea both win prior to this game on Monday night, Nottingham Forest, for the first time in several months, will find themselves outside of the Champions League places with this game against Tottenham to play. In terms of injuries and suspensions, James Maddison sacrificed himself to win the penalty which Dominic Solanke scored in the victory over Frankfurt last night. He looks set to miss this game. They'll be desperate for Heung-min Son to be back, but from what I can tell, he's probably not going to make it either. No fresh concerns for Forest, although they are still going to be without Ola Aina, who, since his absence, has been a massive, massive miss in what has been a big dip in form for Nottingham Forest over the last few weeks. The reverse fixture was a 1-0 win to Nottingham Forest. I still think Spurs will probably just about get something from this game. I was very tempted to go for a 0-0, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, which rounds off my Premier League predictions for the weekend in terms of Game Week 33. Like I said, Monday morning, I will cover the 2 bonus games taking place in midweek. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let me know anything you think I've missed as well. I'll see you again very, very soon.